My name is Greg Guzzetta. I own a company called the Event Intelligence Group. We provide surveillance and intelligence services for music festivals all around the world, as well as marathons and some other large events like that, large public events. I started in high school doing lighting on plays in high school. And going all the way back, I had a friend whose family had a band in high school. Dad was a dentist, so he bought sound equipment for them. I learned how to mix originally with that equipment. Then I went to Cal State Fullerton, got involved with Associated Student Presents, and three of the people actually that I did that with at the time are still I still work with. So this is I graduated. Well, didn't graduate. Graduate, kids. I didn't graduate, but I left Cal State Fullerton in '85. I went on the road. I ended up going on the road. But the college. The Associated Student Presents was like the greatest experience ever. You know, we used to go to the college. I forget what they used to call it. It was the college programmers convention. I forget what it was called. But we used to go. We sit on panels, and I would tell people if you're interested in the business, use the state's money, and make your mistakes in college, and then go out and don't make those mistakes as much as you can. So then I left school. I went on tour. The Blasters was one of my first tours I ever did, Dramarama. And then I ended up, I mixed front of house, mixed monitors. I learned early on if you were able to do sound and lighting, you can get more work. So I also designed a few tours. I did that, got off the road, and that's when radio station festivals first started happening. So I started designing production for radio station festivals. Then they went from becoming a marketing tool to a revenue stream for radio stations, and they cut out all the fun stuff. So that's when I started to just kind of become an event producer. And I've done that now I still have a production company. I've done that now for about 15 years. Red Bull was one of my biggest clients doing all their large music stuff. I started going over to the UK doing festivals about 5 years ago. Noticed that their health and safety situation is much different over there. They have a lot of surveillance, a lot of CCTV cameras, and I noticed it was something that was kind of missing over here. So actually, Lollapalooza was the first festival 3 years ago that I brought a system out to see if it would be accepted here in the States. And it was. And one of the great things about working this festival as well is Dirk Stallnecker, who's the the festival director. He really grabbed onto it quickly, because most people think of our cameras as like a security tool, or we're busting kids doing drugs or whatever. It's not that at all. The basis of what we do is we become experts in crowd dynamics, egress, ingress, crowd flows. So at the angles that we have cameras and things that we can see where problems are developing. And so if, for instance, Thursday night we found a couple of fence lines that were just pinching people in and backing up, we're able to call in the ops team. They come pull fence lines back. But Dirk really understood that it's not just about watching kids do bad things. It's about really being able to sit in one place at a festival site and see the entire festival from angles that you can't normally see. Like right now, since the rain just passed through, we've been on the radio with operations because we could see down into front of the stages and showing them where they need to put in bark or whatever they're going to do to soak up some of the water. But then we also play a part in law enforcement. Like I always say, we don't look for kids doing drugs. We look for the guys that are selling it. So with all the electronic scene that's coming up now, Molly and MDMA, it's a big problem. So what we try and do is help them mitigate that issue. It's interesting. The rural ones are always difficult because there's usually the access to the site is usually a 2-lane farm road or something. So traffic planning and access is always an issue there. Whereas here, this is one of the reasons it's such a great festival. There's no parking. There's no, everybody comes, either walks in or takes, transit or whatever. And trying to take, it's exciting to be able to take a green space, a farm or whatever, and like build this little mini city for a weekend. When you come here to the more urban festivals, you have the roads, you have the city services. I think we have probably 110 Chicago PD officers here, whereas like when we're in a rural area, we'll be lucky if we have 20 officers. And while a lot of people think that presence is a bit of a nuisance, it really just the presence of them kind of keeps the bad issues in check. And also here, you know, when you're in the middle of a farm or a park in the middle of nowhere, you know, you have to bring everything in: power, plumbing. There's a lot of plumbing that comes in because, especially the camping festivals, you have to have water. You know, there's the whole infrastructure part of it. And now that technology is really kind of become a bigger deal with these festivals, you know, I work very, very closely with a company called TourTech, and they provide the IT infrastructure for a lot of the festivals here. And it's just become so sophisticated now with cashless payments, the RFID systems. I mean, it's all on the network. We personally set up our own secure network for our cameras because all of our cameras and all of our equipment is wireless. So we could stick a camera up anywhere. All we need is just a bit of power to do our thing. But in actuality, they're very similar. We have the same staging companies. We have the same power companies. It's just it takes longer to do these rural festivals just because you're starting from ground zero. Well, I don't know if it's forgetting as much as a lot of promoters, especially newer festivals. You know, it takes a festival a good 2 or 3 years to kind of get its feet and start to make a profit. And a lot of times, promoters will skimp on things like aluminum trackway and stuff. So, like, if we were in the middle of a farm right now with this rain that come through, if you don't have enough aluminum trackway to get the forklifts, the boom lifts, the generators moved around, the trucks that pump out the porta potties. You know, I just did a festival. I did the Hudson Music Project up in Saugerties, New York, on the side of the original or the second, yeah. And it was a first-year festival. Was a company, MCP, that's just been bought by SFX. But since it was the first-year festival, they didn't spend the money that they would spend here to provide those things that just make it. So lifts were getting stuck in the mud, and you know, infrastructure is so critical that I didn't really learn until I really got heavy into these things, you know, 6-7 years ago. There's a lot of things you don't think about. Trackway sounds, you know, like a really insignificant thing, but when you've got trucks getting stuck in the mud, it gums the whole thing up, and, you know, even just the bands getting in and out, you know, it's just, there's things like that. So I would say the important thing is it's not just a stage and like sound and lights, it's that all that infrastructure that goes around it is as important, if not more important, than the actual production itself. You could do a really nice infrastructure with some small, tasty stages with, you know, with good acts and have a great festival, but you can't have a great festival if you have huge stages and no infrastructure to support it, because then it just doesn't work. Everybody gets stuck, and it just doesn't work. So this Saugerties, where we were at, I was there with Todd Rundgren at the time, and it rained just like it did for the Hudson Project, and it's just, you know, you don't know where, there's the things you run into. Like for there, so it's an old farm. It's actually still a working farm part of the year. But so there's fertile soil like 12 inches down, and then it's clay. So it rains, and the clay doesn't let it drain, and so it becomes like a 12-inch sponge that you're walking around. It's like quicksand, and it's just things you don't know until it happens, and it just makes life miserable sometimes. If you don't know what part of it you want to get into, becoming a runner or a PA, even just volunteering at first is great. To be able to see as much of the different aspects of the production of a festival as possible, because just like I say, in the operations, you know, side operations and infrastructure is so important. I would imagine most people don't even know about those things. You know, the guys that come in, the side ops teams that come in and do these festivals, they were there here 2 weeks ago, just doing, you know, we have 2.5-3 miles of fencing around the site alone. So being able to, even if you can volunteer on a lot of this stuff and just see what's going on. You know, and luckily, like C3 has a great volunteer program here. A lot of festivals do, and the volunteers actually are a big part of a lot of festivals. And if you're smart and you hook onto the right people, you can learn a lot. But I would say that and, you know, the just learning the basics of event production in college, I think is great. Even if you're in theater, you know, a production's a production. It's all got sound, lights, and artists, right? So it's just a matter of you know, getting in there and find that niche that you'd like, that's really interesting to you. I was scattered early on. That's why I did sound, I did lights, I did everything. And then I became a production manager on tours. And because I did all these different things, I was able to take that step to being production manager, because now somebody couldn't come to me and say, well, you can't do that technically or whatever. Well, yes, you can. I know you can. So just getting it really well-rounded, but finding that niche that you really like, because at the end of the day, it's hard. You know, it's very tough, and if you're not enjoying what you're doing, even in the bad times, if you don't, you know, it's not worth it. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's really not worth it at all. Hi, I'm Greg Guzzetta with the Event Intelligence Group, and you're watching GRAMMY Pro.